Well, everyone, it's time for us to go ahead and do a very interesting comparison, an iPhone 11 versus the Samsung Galaxy S10 about 3 years later. Essentially, these two phones came out in 2019, and although they weren't competing with each other side by side, these are still very interesting phones to compare, especially when you consider the iPhone 11 is still being sold by Apple for $499, and the Samsung Galaxy S10 you can buy in the used market for substantially cheaper than that in pretty much every single used priced website you can find. So, if you want to buy some other phones, I'd recommend this here. Links will be down in the description. You can get them from there. You can help support the channel at the same time. Now, on the front of the Samsung Galaxy S10, we had a beautiful 6.1-inch dynamic AMOLED display. It's a 1440p panel, and this is by far one of probably the best screens Samsung's ever made. It still holds up very well. It was a hole punch display with a hole punch in the top right corner, and overall this panel was very good. It was not ProMotion or 120 Hz or anything like that, but it still holds up very well, and it's definitely one of the best screens Samsung's ever made. Fingerprint sensor in the display as well, which is really cool. On the iPhone 11, on the other hand, we had a 6.1-inch IPS panel, and this panel wasn't a 1440p panel, it was pretty much like 750p, something around there. And it wasn't a bad panel. You have a lot more bezel around this thing. You have a notch on this thing, no fingerprint sensor in this display. But one thing that I like about this screen is that it is a fairly smooth display. Even though it's not 90 Hz or anything, it still feels like a pretty smooth display. So that's one thing we got going here. But the Galaxy S10 definitely wins in terms of the actual panel. Now, in terms of thickness and thickness, what's very interesting is the Galaxy S10 is actually kind of a thinner phone than the iPhone 11. It's also a smaller phone and like a smaller footprint because of the lack of bezel, but it actually was a pretty, flagship. It was like a flagship phone for the most part, and it's crazy how much thinner it is than the, iPhone 11. On the bottom, we also had a headphone jack on the Galaxy S10 and a USB Type-C port and expandable storage on the Galaxy S10 as well, which is crazy to think about on a phone like this. It's just so insane. Now on the back, we had glass backs on both, which was really cool. A dual camera setup on the iPhone 11, and a triple camera setup on the Galaxy S10. Now, on top of this, we had wireless charging on both, but we had reverse wireless charging on the Samsung Galaxy S10. How crazy is that? That is one of the coolest things that we had on that type of capability on the Galaxy S10. Fortunately, on pretty much every single iPhone, we've not gotten that feature set yet. Hopefully, we do get it in the future, but I will definitely tell you, when you look at both these phones, they both have held up fairly well, but I think the Galaxy S10 has the best features when it comes down to it, and it still is almost like a flagship, which is so crazy to think about. Now, in terms of software and longevity, this is a very important thing. The Galaxy S10 is still kind of supported with software, which is really cool. I don't think it's going to be getting the next couple versions of Android, though, which is kind of unfortunate, but this is a phone that still lasted for quite a bit of time, and honestly, Samsung knew how good this phone was, and they actually supported this phone for way longer than a lot of their previous Samsung devices. And I think we've kind of all forgotten about it, but just ever since 2020, Samsung has been making a lot of moves in favor of older phones, and that is something I really do like. On the iPhone 11, though, this is a phone that's still going to be supported for probably the next 2-3 years, probably even longer than that. So you definitely have a longer lasting phone from something like the iPhone 11, and that is where this phone probably wins the most at, because this phone is still supported, still being sold by Apple, so I'm assuming they're going to sell it for, it's supported for a lot longer, who knows, could be completely the opposite. But I feel like with something like the iPhone 11, this phone is not going anywhere anytime soon, and I feel like the Galaxy S10 is more or less, still a very valuable phone, but the iPhone 11 probably wins in terms of software and longevity. So that kind of covers it up there. Now let's go into a speed comparison between both these phones. The iPhone 11 has that Apple A13 Bionic chip inside of it with 4 GB of RAM, where the Samsung Galaxy S10 has that Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 chipset inside of it with 6 GB of RAM on the base model, and it does go up to 8. This one has 6 GB of RAM. So let's go into a speed comparison between both. Okay, there we go. All the apps are cleared out in the background, as you guys can tell. So let us get into it. Let's do phone calls, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I think the iPhone 11 was slightly faster there. Let's go and hop out of here. Let's do their camera applications, 3, 2, 1. Took a little bit of an extra second on the Galaxy S10. Let's go and take a photo, and let's go and open up this photo. And definitely the iPhone 11 was taking, I guess, a faster approach to get into it. The edit button, 3, 2, 1. And definitely even things like this, it does take a little bit of a faster time on the iPhone 11, than the Galaxy S10. Let's get into their Play Stores and App Stores, 3, 2, 1. Okay, yeah, the Galaxy S10 definitely won here. The iPhones are notoriously a little bit slower to open up their App Store, where the Play Store just opens up extremely fast, so that's one thing to keep in mind. Getting out of an application, definitely a smoother experience on the iPhone 11. Hopping out of here, let's go and get into some of these third-party applications. Snapchat, 3, 2, 1. Definitely a long time on the iPhone 11. Let's go and get into some other apps, which they are all over the place on the screen. Let's go and get into Netflix. Let's do Facebook 3, 2, 1. I was logged in here, so definitely keep that in mind. Let's go and hop out of here. Let's go and get into Temple Run 2, 3, 2. I don't have it. Let's do Temple Run 1, 3, 2, 1. Now I'm hoping there's not any pop-ups or anything crazy that comes up, but you can see here on this type of screen as well, it was a little bit of a faster experience on the Galaxy S10. So again, that may be something else to kind of keep in mind, but you're still getting a pretty fast phone from the iPhone 11. Let's go and hop out of here. Let's try Thank You 3, 2, 1. And the Galaxy S10 loaded that one up very fast, hopping out of here. Let's go and get into the next one. Let's do Quizlet 3, 2, 1. Again, faster, actually on the iPhone 11 that time, very surprising. Bofa 3, 2, 1. And an update was required here, so I don't even know if that actually loaded into it, so we'll just skip that one. Let's go and get into Twitter 3, 2, 1. And iPhone 11 definitely was far faster there. Hopping out of this one, I think we kind of have a decent understanding of which one is the faster one overall. I think both of them are flip-flopping, and I don't really think there's a direct winner here. I think both of them did a pretty good job overall. And that's a really nice thing. When you have a phone that have been, a few years embedded and kind of like grown up with each other, and for them to be somewhat close to each other in terms of speed is actually really cool. So in terms of that, that kind of covers up the speed comparison. Now in terms of the cameras, this is another really cool thing. Both phones have held up very well in the camera department. I will say though, one has held up a little bit better. The iPhone 11 wide and ultra wide sensor, Galaxy S10 wide, ultra wide, and telephoto lens, 4K 60 on the back of both of them, and 4K 60 on the front as well. And with the iPhone 11, I will say this iPhone is still being sold by Apple brand new. So that is a really big thing to keep in mind. By having a phone like this that's still supported, it's actually pretty important in my opinion. And I do think with something like the iPhone 11, this is a very solid camera. It's definitely not perfect, but one big thing to keep in mind with a lot of social media applications like Snapchat and TikTok, they end up utilizing the camera a little bit better than some of these Android phones. So that's one thing to keep in mind. But you still have portrait mode. You don't really have too many other modes. But I've always found like the iPhone 11's camera was pretty good for the most part, and it still holds up fairly well. But the Galaxy S10 camera, in my opinion, is probably the better one. I mean, this one was a solid camera when it first came out. It has the triple camera, setup, which I love. Having that type of triple camera kind of future-proofs a lot of phones that are going to be coming out. I mean, if you have a phone like this, I mean, it's still like a very good camera. But another thing I love about Samsung, they throw in a bunch of features, and nobody really even comes close, not even Google Pixels, not even the iPhone 11. None of these cameras come close. I mean, just look at how many features this specific phone has just right here. I mean, it's pretty crazy, and these are just some of them. I mean, you have a ton of features built in to each individual. One here, so you can click on settings. You can kind of customize a lot of other things. So Samsung cameras have a ton of features. Even the front camera is really good, and the fact that you have 4K 60 on the front of both these is really nice. But I think the Samsung Galaxy S10 wins in the camera department. And to be honest, this is kind of a complicated type of comparison because I don't think there's a phone that's substantially 1,000 times better than the other one. I feel like the Galaxy S10 is more of a flagship. I feel like in 2022, this phone holds up very well, but I just wish this thing ended up getting support for 5 years. It's still supported. I think it's still going to be getting security updates for quite a bit of time too. But I look at the iPhone 11 and it kind of outbeats and outclasses the Galaxy S10 in the one very important area, and that's software updates. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? If this phone was like super easy to custom ROM and all that stuff, then maybe I would be supporting this one a little bit more. But if you want a phone that you want to keep for the next few years, the iPhone 11 is probably the one I'd recommend buying. Even though they came out the same years, this one probably has a longer future ahead of it. But I still think the Galaxy S10 is still completely worth buying. If you want to keep a phone for the next 2 years, this one is a better one. If you want to keep it for more like 3 to 4 years, then this one might be the better one for you. So that kind of covers it up. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, not me so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.